Roths have only 2 benefits. Laser funds have 6. In this episode, we are going to address the question, should I convert my IRAs or 401ks to a Roth? So get ready. You're going to gain insights into opportunities you probably didn't know even existed. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been a financial strategist for more than 45 years, but I've also been a tax minimization specialist, helping people retire and not outlive their money. So this is a very critical piece of information that you need to be aware of. Should I choose a Roth? Because really only about 10% of Americans right now have Roths. The other 90% have traditional IRAs or 401ks. And so many times I'll use a little metaphor to get them to think about this. I say, let's say you were a farmer and you had the choice of buying your seed in the springtime, and you didn't have to pay tax on the price of the seed, but you plant it, you irrigate, you cultivate, you work hard, and in the fall of life, this would be retirement now, you agree to pay tax on what you sell your harvest for. That's a traditional IRA 401k. What if you could just pay tax on the price you paid for the seed? And later on, when you sold your harvest, you were able to do that tax-free. And most Americans go, oh, I'd rather have harvest be tax-free. Then why do you have all this money in those IRAs and 401ks? You're getting a tax break on the seed money, not the harvest. And they go, whoa, I've never thought of it before like that. So when people begin to realize they're not going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retire unless they have very little saved, it would behoove them to get the taxes over and done with earlier on the contribution phase and enjoy the distribution, the harvest, tax-free. Well, people think I'm talking about a Roth. Now, a Roth is a step in the right direction. When did they start? 1997. Senator Harry Roth was presenting this idea because Congress was hard up for money. Now, they actually did this for them, for their coffers, more than for us, but it was still a step in the right direction. And basically, he said, you know what? A lot of people are getting smarter. They're realizing it would be better just to pay tax on the seed and enjoy the harvest without tax. So let's introduce a Roth IRA. And then a few years later, it was a Roth 401k. Name it after me. He wanted credit for that. Well, they passed the Roth, and it was in 1997 under the Taxpayer Relief Act. And so you could convert your traditional IRAs or 401ks to a Roth, but when you do that, you pay tax. That created tax revenue for the government. That's why it was a windfall the government got, because they didn't want to wait around until you retired to get their portion. So it was a good deal for the government, actually smart for many people. But a lot of people in America can't own a Roth. They make too much money. There's strings attached with Roths. You can only put in a certain dollar amount, a certain percent of your income. You can't touch it for 5 years or till you're 59 and a half. And see, it has all these strings attached. And so Roths only have 2 benefits. You take after-tax money and it accumulates tax-free, and then you can access your money tax-free. What I use is referred to by savvy CPAs and tax attorneys as the rich man's Roth. You don't have to be rich to own one, but because the rich can't own a Roth, this is what they choose. And so I'm going to share with you why the rich man's Roth, which I call the laser fund, has 6 advantages instead of just the 2 that a Roth has. So why would I own a Roth? So the laser fund is what I call it. Laser is an acronym that I've used for years that stands for Liquid Assets Safely Earning Returns. That spells laser. But it's laser focused. So let me share with you the benefits. And then at the end here, I'll show you how you can get educated by reading, watching, listening, however you like to learn. So the laser fund is a maximum funded tax advantaged insurance contract that is structured to be used as a living tax-free accumulation vehicle rather than as a death benefit, even though there is a death benefit, which is sort of coming along for the ride. This is where I have averaged 10.07% tax-free rates of return for the last 25 years. Over the last 45 years, I've averaged 8.2%. How come it increased to 10.07? Because indexing wasn't around back in 1980 when I first started putting my money in these. Indexing didn't come around until 1997, and that's why my rate of return went from about 8 to 10%, went up 2 percentage points. I'll explain this in just a moment. So what does a laser fund have as an advantage? Why is it called the rich man's Roth? Because you not only take after-tax money and it accumulates tax-free, like Roths, and you can access money tax-free, but there's no strings attached that are attached to the Roth. So for example, the third big benefit of a laser fund is that during banner years, you can put in huge lump sums. I mean, you could put in $200,000, $300,000 if you structured it to accommodate that, or you could open a new one to accommodate that. You can't put that much money in a Roth in a single year. But during down years, if you don't contribute to a Roth, you can't make up for that in future years. With the laser fund, you can make up for it. If you have room to put in $100,000 a year and you only put in $20,000, that means you had $80,000 of room that you didn't use. Well, 2 or 3 years down the road, you can make up for all the room you didn't lose. You don't have that opportunity with the Roth. It's gone. If you don't use it, you lose it. With a laser fund, I can just make up for all the years that I didn't put money in that I could have put in. What is the fourth benefit? If you need money for anything, you don't have to prove a hardship. If you need money for anything, you can access your money with an electronic funds transfer or a phone call. There's no IRS penalties for touching it before 5 years or before age 59 and a half or whatever. And so I have a lot of clients who retired in their mid-30s. They want to access money tax-free the rest of their life at rates of return. A million generates about $100,000 a year if they're earning 10%. They want to do that when they're 35, not wait till they're 59 and a half. And so that's a huge benefit of the laser fund. Now, there's 2 additional benefits you may not be aware of. So with the laser fund, you have indexing strategies as an option, which I mentioned I've used since 1997. This is where my money is tucked safely in a multi-billion, even some are multi-trillion-dollar insurance companies. By the way, these companies are where the government goes to when they need money. This is where banks and credit unions put 30 to 40% of their tier 1 assets for liquidity and safety. And so I put my money in those and they earn their general account portfolio rate. And that's been as high as 15.5% back in the 80s. And it's been as low as about 4% when interest rates are low. But when interest rates are high for earning, they're high for borrowing. And when they're low for earning, they're low for borrowing. And so if I have $1 million in my laser fund, I can just hunker down and settle for the, let's say 5%, $50,000 of interest, and it's tax-free. That's better than most IRAs and 401ks actually earn on the average. Did you know that? But any year that I want, I can link my returns to an index of my choice, like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the Russell 2000. My money is not in the market. My million is still safe in the insurance company. They're taking that interest, let's say 5%, that $50,000 of interest they're earning on my money, and they're buying upside options in the index that I chose. And so my million is not at risk. That's safe. But if the market loses, I don't make anything, but I didn't lose the million. I relinquish the for sure 5%. But if the market goes up, they're able to pay me what the market does. And sometimes it has earned 10%, 15%. Some years, like 2017, 25%. But here's the key. If I earn 25%, like I did in 2017, on $1 million, that's 250 grand. Now I have 1,250,000 in my laser fund. If the next year the market dived 40%, okay, if it just dove, instead of my million going down to 600,000 or my 1,250,000, losing all the money I just made, you don't lose the 250,000 you made. I still have 1,250,000. I didn't make anything the next year, but I didn't lose because I locked in the gains from every year. You lock in the gains, and the next year if the market goes down, you never lose due to market volatility the money you've made in the past. That is the wonderful benefit of a laser fund. What is the last or sixth benefit that a Roth never has? Well, when you ultimately die, because none of us are getting out of here alive, out of this life. And so when you pass away, a laser fund increases in value and transfers tax-free to your heirs, your spouse, your kids, your grandkids, even a charity. What that means is, if I were to die right now, I'm 67 right now, and if I had $1 million in a laser fund account, that million would blossom to about $2.5 million instantly and transfer to my heirs tax-free. There's not a Roth around that will do that. And people say, well, how much does that cost? Nothing. It's coming along for the ride on my laser fund. It is being paid for with a minuscule portion of money that you would pay in taxes on a traditional IRA or 401k. You would have to be earning 15% to net 10. I only have to earn 11 to net 10 in a laser fund, and that 1% is paying for the cost of the insurance that the IRS says has to be there, or it won't be tax-free. But see, I am safer in a laser fund. So those are the 6 advantages. So when people ask me, Doug, what about a Roth? I go, well, why in the world would I own a Roth when I can have the 2 benefits of a Roth and a whole bunch more at no additional cost? What are the benefits? It accumulates tax-free. I can access it tax-free. But I can put in large lump sums. I can make up for years I didn't put in the maximum allowed. I can access money anytime for any reason without any IRS penalties. I can then ride the market up tax-free, and I don't lose when it goes down. And when I ultimately die, it blossoms in value and transfers tax-free. Hello? This is why I've never owned an IRA or 401k. Never will. I've never owned a Roth. Never will. Because the laser fund is superior. If this is resonating and you want to learn more about this, I've written a book called The Laser Fund, and you can click on this episode here, learn a little bit more about that, and then I will send you a free copy of that book. You just pay $5.95 shipping and handling, and you can learn more about how the laser fund can empower you.